In this demo, I am going to deploy an EC2 instance using AWS's Elastic Container Service. This single instance will host 3 running tasks. And these tasks will run HTTPD, and we'll also create an application load balancer to ensure that traffic is being routed to these 3 tasks equally. And so we are going to take a look at this network diagram here. Here's the network diagram that we'll be working with. As you can see here, we're going to use the default US East 1 region with a default VPC. And we're going to create an application load balancer to serve traffic to our 3 tasks in our one EC2 instance. So all of this is running on ECS service with a deployment type of EC2 rather than Fargate. So let's take a look at the plan here. I've written this down so we can follow this here. We're going to create security groups for the load balancer and the ECS environment. We're going to create the application load balancer itself and the listener rule, create target groups for the application load balancer, and then we'll create an ECS cluster, and then we'll define the task definitions. We'll create the task services for it, and then we'll configure the containers with a default HTML.index page to help us identify which container is responding to our load balancer request. And if you look down here, guys, this is the security group summary that I've written up here. For the application load balancer, we're going to allow all inbound, all TCP traffic sourcing from anywhere. And then for the ECS environment, we're going to allow traffic, all TCP sourcing from the application load balancer, and also allow SSH traffic so we can get into the EC2 instance and manage the 3 tasks manually. So with that being said, let's take a look at the AWS console and let's get started. So here's the AWS console. The first thing we'll do is we'll create a security group. So let's go ahead and do that. Security group here for the application load balancer, we're going to call it ALB-SG. And then we say allow to ALB. For VPC, we'll leave default VPC. Inbound rules, we're going to add. We're going to say all TCP, sourcing from anywhere. If you're working from home and you are going to use this environment for a lengthy amount of time, you should choose my IP to lock it down to your specific IP. But in this demo, I'm just going to choose from anywhere for simplicity's sake, because I'll be tearing it down rather quickly. And we'll just hit create security group, wait for that to complete. There it is. We'll create another security group. This one is for our ECS environment. We'll call it ECS-SG, description allowed to ECS. For VPC, we'll leave it as default. Inbound rules, we're going to go ahead and say custom TCP. Actually, we'll say all TCP. Custom, we're going to choose the application load balancer security group that we just created. And then we're also going to add another rule, SSH. so we can access the EC2 itself. And again, you should choose my IP if you're going to leave this environment up and running for a while, playing around with it, just to be secure. All right, I got everything I need here. No outbound rule, create security group. All right, let's take a look at our network diagram again. So what we've essentially done is create a security group here that allows all TCP traffic through the ALB. And then we also created a security group for the ECS environment right here. So that way we can SSH into the EC2 instance to manage these 3 containers. And we also allowed traffic inbound from the security group of the access of the application load balancer, right? Because whatever is going through the application load balancer will need to hit the containers. So therefore, let's take a look at the console again. So therefore, we have allowed 2 inbound rules here. One is for SSH and one is for the security group of the application load balancer. So in summary, here we have the application load balancer security group and then the ECS security group. All right, now what we need to do is create a load balancer. So for our load balancer, we'll hit create load balancer. We'll choose application load balancer for HTTP traffic. So we'll hit create. We'll call it ECS-ALB. It has to be internet facing. And then we'll leave here as IPv4 default. We'll choose the default VPC. And for load balancer, we need to have 2 availability zones. We'll choose A and B. Security group, we'll choose existing, which is the ALB security group we created. Uncheck the default. For routing, for listening and routing, we'll choose HTTP and port 80. And we don't have any target group yet to forward it to, so we need to create a target group. And here we go. For target group, the target type is going to be the instances. Going back to this network diagram, so for example, traffic hitting this application load balancer, there's a target group listening for the protocol on the port, and it will target these 3 tasks running on an EC2 instance. So therefore, we need to choose instance as the target type. Target group name, we'll call it ECS-TG for target group. Port is 80 and protocol is HTTP. VPC, we'll leave it as default there. Everything else is default. Health check default. We'll hit next. And then we'll just hit create target group. Okay, target group is created. There it is. Now let's go back to our application load balancer. Nothing there. If I hit this refresh button, we now see the ECS target group. So the traffic that is destined for port 80 running HTTP will be listening. We'll have the target group, and it will destine traffic to the EC2 containers. We'll go ahead and leave everything else blank. create load balancer. All right, load balancer is created with one rule. There's our rule right here. Listener rule, forwarded to target group ECS-TG. Okay, the next thing we need to do, according to our procedure, is now we need to create an ECS cluster. So we'll just type in ECS. There it is. Back to our diagram. So now we need to do this. We need to configure this whole environment right here, this guy. So we're gonna have to create an ECS cluster name, and then the deployment type is gonna be EC2, create a key pair for it, and then we'll go ahead and follow up with the task definition itself. So let's go back to the console, create cluster, cluster name, my-ECS-cluster. Infrastructure type, uncheck Fargate, check EC2 instance. When you do that, an auto scaling group will be created for you automatically. We can choose inbound provisioning, on-demand provisioning model. And for the AMI type, choose Linux 2. T-Micro is the free tier, we'll leave it as that. Everything else is default. The desired capacity, basically how many EC2 instances do you want the auto scaling group to provision for you? We'll choose 1 as a minimum and 1 as a maximum. For key pair, we don't have any key pair created yet, so we're gonna have to create a new key pair. And we'll call this EC2-key pair. And the type's going to be RSA, and the format's going to be .pem by default. Hit create key pair. Now that's downloaded into my download folder. I'll go ahead and go back into my ECS cluster configuration tab. There it is. I'll choose EC2-key pair. Root EBS volume, default's 30. I'll just type in 30 again. Now for the network setting, default VPC is what we wanted. Subnet, we need to stick with the 2 subnets that we allowed, and then get rid of just everything else. So we'll keep US East 1A and 1B. Get rid of all the other subnets. No need for those. And then for the security group of the ECS cluster, we'll use an existing security group that we created, which is the ECS-SG, and uncheck the default. Okay, and then for the auto assign public IP, I'll leave it as it is, use the subnet setting, and I'll hit create. So now it's creating my ECS-cluster cluster. We'll wait for that. In the meantime, we can go back and see if our instances have been spun up for us by the ECS auto scaling group. And there it is, it's running. If I check on that, there's the public IP address. And there's the name for it, ECS instance dash my ECS cluster. Okay, great. If I go back to the cluster, it says now that it's done. I can hit view cluster here, or I can click my cluster here. So we got 1 registered container instances in our ECS cluster. Infrastructure. Okay, for our infrastructure, here's our auto scaling group name, current is 1, desired is 1. Here's the container instance ID. All right, so now we need to create a task definition for our ECS environment. So let's take a look at the network diagram again. Our task definition will contain the service name, which is going to run Apache, the launch type of EC2, the network mode is going to be bridge, operating system is going to be Linux, the latest image, and then for CPU, we're going to allocate a quarter virtual CPU and a quarter gigabyte of memory. All right. So here it says Apache 2.4, but it's going to be whatever the latest version is. So let's go back into the console, create new task definition is what we want to do. And what was the name that we wanted to choose? Family name, my ECS task definition. Go back into here. Infrastructure requirements. Uncheck Fargate and go ahead and click on EC2 instance. For network mode, we need to choose the bridge mode. And for CPU, we'll choose 0.256 virtual CPU and then 0.25 gigabyte memory. Leave the task role default as it is. Container for the name. Container details. Specify a name, container image, and whether the container should be marked as essential, blah, blah, blah. So for name, we're going to choose HTTPD. And then for the image, HTTPD : latest one. Essential, yes. Everything else here, leave it as is. Create. All right, task is created fairly quickly. Here's what we allocated. Okay, so now let's go back into our cluster. Now we need to create a service. So now we need to create an ECS service. Let's go ahead and do that here. Create a service. The service is going to be for the existing cluster, my-ECS cluster. And we're going to choose the launch type for compute options. And we want to choose EC2 as the launch type. And then for deployment configuration, application type is going to be service. And then family, we created that earlier, the task definition. So we'll choose my ECS task definition, latest version. So I've done this dry run before with the same name. So that's why it says 5. If you're doing it for the first time, it's probably going to say 1. Service name, ECS-service. We'll just put that in. For service type, we'll choose replica. How many desired tasks do we want? So we're going to create 3 tasks, 3 Docker tasks, that is. All right. So let's choose 3. And for load balancing, this is what we need here. We're going to require load balancing to these tasks. So choose application load balancer. Container is already set for you. There's nothing else there to choose. So load balancer is the ECS application load balancer name. And we'll choose an existing listener, HTTP port 80. Target group, existing target group. chosen for you already, and then we'll hit create. So now we wait. This could take a while. It's spinning up our service. In the meantime, let's go ahead and take a look at our instance. Here is our instance that was created for us automatically. Now let's go ahead and see if we can SSH into the instance to verify 3 tasks have been created or not. So I'll copy the public IP address. I'll go into my terminal session here. And here I'll go, let's see here. I'm looking for that key pair file, right? ls minus la, something. Okay, there was the EC2 key pair. So now we got to change the permission so we can access our server. So change permission on that. 400. EC2 key pair PAM. Boom. Now we can SSH minus I. EC2 key pair. And then the login name is EC2-user at that IP address. All right. Okay, I'm in, and okay, great. So it shows here that we are running 3 instances, three tasks, 3 containers. 1, 2, and 3, right? HTTP latest, HTTP latest. All right, let's go back into our console here. How's our cluster doing? ECS service has been deployed successfully. 3 tasks running. Let's click on that. I got 3 tasks running. Nice. If I click on the first task, container instance ID. All right. So let's go ahead and go back into our terminal. So now we need to go into these tasks individually here. So we'll go docker exec minus IT, the container ID, bash. All right. So CD, we need to go into the htdocs directory to configure the index HTML page to have it display the ID of this container when we are sending traffic to the application load balancer to help us identify which task we are being served. So cd htdocs. HTML. So we'll go cat index.html. This is from container number 1. We'll get out of there. Okay, so cat index.html. This is from container number 1. Okay, so let's get out of there. All right, now let's go ahead and go into container 2. So we will say Copy this to save some time. cd ht docs cat index.html. And we'll say this is from container number 2. Control C. All right, now we need to go into the third one. Oops, get out of here. And the third one is this container ID here. cd ht docs cat index.html, and we'll say this is from container number 3. All right, let's go back into our console. All right, here's our console. And where is our application load balancer? So now let's take a look at our diagram. So now when we access the application load balancer, it's going to serve up the web page of these containers equally, right? So let's do that. What do we need? We need the DNS name of this application load balancer. Let's go back to our console here. The application load balancer, where's that at? So we'll choose the DNS name for that one. Okay, so here's our A record. Copy that. Let's put that into our browser now. Boom. There it is. This is from container 3. Traffic is being served from container 3. So what do we just do? We pull up the URL for this application load balancer, and traffic is being served from container 3. Let's go back again, refresh this. Now it's from container 2. Refresh this again. Now it's from container 3. Refresh this again. Now it's from container 1. 2, 3, 1. So there it is. The application load balancer is load balancing traffic with protocol HTTP on port 80, right? Because this is all web traffic. So there you have it, guys. So let's go ahead and take a look at this console here again, tasks. All right, so let's take a look at these. Let me see here. Services, infrastructure, container instance, metrics. Here we go. Let's see how much traffic we're seeing. Look at the spike in traffic. CPU utilization. All right. So there it is. So let's take a look again. What did we do? We created an application load balancer. We created a target group. We deployed an ECS environment in a public subnet. We spun up one physical EC2 instance. And then within that, we deployed 3 container running HTTPD. We've defined the deployment type of EC2. We created a service definition, etc., etc. So that's done. Let's go ahead and break this down or tear it down so that we don't get charged extra fees. So first thing I'll do is I'll go under my task definition and I'll need to deregister my task. Click on this, click on this. I'll say deregister. I'll hit deregister. And I'll wait for a few seconds here. That's done. Now I'm going to go into my cluster, 3 running container instances. I'll click on my cluster and I'll just hit delete cluster because we're done. So I'll type in delete my ECS cluster. Retry. Let's delete cluster again. Apparently it wasn't really done deregistering the instance, but now it is, so that part is done. So while that's being worked on, let's go ahead and delete our application load balancer that we created. We'll go ahead and delete the target group. Action, delete. Oops. Oh, it's being used with the application load balancer. So let's go ahead and delete the application load balancer. And so we can get rid of that first. Action. Delete load balancer, confirm. Okay, load balancer is deleted, nothing here. Now let's go to target group and just delete the target group. Yes, delete. Okay, there it is. And then our security group that we created. Delete security group. Will not be deleted because one security group is associated with, it's associated with this one. That's right, we got to delete the ECS security group first. Delete security group, confirm. Okay, nothing there. And let's go back into our security group again. Uncheck that. Okay, now we'll choose the application load balancer security group and it should be able to delete it now. All right, nothing there. So how are we doing on the... So let's take a look at the EC2 instance to see if it has been deleted. So here it was running earlier. If I hit refresh, it's been terminated now. Okay, so what about the cluster itself? Okay, cluster and stack deletion successful. So it's crossed out, inactive. Let's go ahead and click on clusters again and nothing is there. Okay, and if you really want to clean things up, go ahead and get rid of your key pairs also. Delete. Delete the key pair. Done. All right. So if we go into our terminal, we got kicked out. Okay, perfect. Perfect. All right, guys, that was it. I just wanted to show how you can quickly configure an ECS environment with one EC2 instance hosting 3 different containers running Docker. And so there it is with the application load balancer serving up traffic to the 3 containers equally. All right, thank you.